Thank you very much, Shirley. Yes, every library has resources that you don't know about. And everybody who thinks the internet is the place to go, the internet has about 10% of what's available and 10% of what you want. So what I'm going to be doing today, my background is actually, I'm a nurse. Nurses can do anything. But then I did another degree in counseling psychology, and then I decided that when I retired, I needed to have something to do. So I decided to do genealogy, and here I am. After my parents died, my grandparents died, my first cousins mostly died, all my aunts and uncles had died, I decided to start to do genealogy, kind of late. So those of you who are a bit younger, who might still have time to be gathering information from older people, you're way ahead of us. So I just want to remind everybody before we really get into this and I start showing you how I research, you want to close off your video, your audio, please, Heather. Would you do that as well? Just turn off your audio down at the bottom left. Your video, I mean. Thank you, Heather. And hopefully you all have pen and paper so you're ready to take some notes or to write down some questions. If you're going to have any questions, can I please state that you put a big fat Q. Make sure there's a Q and a space so when we're looking in the chat log, we can immediately pick out the questions, okay? So first thing first, we need to know where you're researching, where your ancestors were. So Shirley, would you do the poll, or do I need to click on it? Just let me know. Thank you, Shirley. So this is just a question of where are you researching from? Because everybody in Canada, except for First Nations people, everybody in Canada has come from somewhere else. So just click pretty quickly. You may have people come from more than one place. Click them all. Click those ones that they come from. It just gives me an idea of where you're looking for. And we'll give it another second. And just a little bit more. The last ones of you just can click it, and it looks like we're almost done. And in the chat, those of you who've written down others, would you mind just putting down in the chat where those other countries were? Perhaps I'll be able to help you, give you a little poke. Okay, so thanks so much for getting it. What we see is 65% are US and Canada, 65% are England and Wales, 40% from Scotland. We've got a big Scottish contingent here, 30% from Ireland, another big group, 15% from Scandinavian countries, and the others, I'm seeing 25%, and that's things like, oh my goodness, Brazil, Portugal, Spain, Peru, Poland, Russia, Poland, Crimea, Belarus, Israel, right. Oh, and Romania. I was waiting to hear somebody say, somebody to write in Galicia, which is an area that went over from southern Poland down into northern the Ukraine. Yes, Galicia. Yes, if you're in that area, you do have that. Well, this is a mixed bag. I'm going to be showing you how to search for things, but what I will try to do is when we're on a couple of these sites, I'll show you where you can get more information on how to see that you can research in particular regions. Because I teach classes for beginners, which I'll be doing again in January, I tend to teach people how to search, not just where to search, because the best site for you to search on is the one that has the information you're looking for. And so if you're looking for Scotland, well, you know what? You need to go to Scotland's people, and you need to go to Scottish indexes. But Ancestry will have some, but not a lot. And if you're looking for Wales, I'm pretty sure you need to have Find My Past. And if you're looking for Germany, maybe the Ukraine, Israel, Middle Europe, you probably are going to start looking at MyHeritage. And if you're in the US and Canada, I suspect you're starting with Ancestry. And all of these people join in together and actually are trying to cover all the possible database groups that they can in order to promote their commercial enterprise. And there is one site, which I'm sure you have probably heard about, called Family Search, which is a free site. It's huge. It is the hugest genealogy site in the world. It's absolutely immense. And they have just finished digitizing absolutely everything in their huge vault, which is wonderful. So I'm going to show you a few different things. I'm going to do this live on screen so you can see what you will see when you're looking. So let's get started with the one you all know best, which is Ancestry. And feel free to make little comments in the chat log as well as you go along. So let me just share my screen. Share. And I want to have this. Share that. Now you should be looking at my screen, which has my Google page, my join page, and I'm going to go to Ancestry. But if you actually look along my top ribbon here, you'll find that very familiar image, which is Ancestry. I do as little typing as I can. It's hard on my arthritic fingers. And besides, you don't need to type things. You can usually just find them. So let's go to Ancestry. I'm already signed in automatically. And when you look at a site, I'm going to assume some of you are fairly new at research. So if I'm talking about simple things you already know about, just take a deep breath. We'll get into something a bit more interesting. When you're on the full page, one of the things I want you to think about is down at the very, very bottom of the page are important things like privacy and terms and conditions. Please, please, please read those. All of the sites, all of the commercial sites pretty much say they can do what they want with the information you put up on their site. And you need to know that. They can do what they want with what you put up on their site. So if you're a newbie, a very new person, and you want to put a tree up on Ancestry or MyHeritage or Find My Past, can I please say don't do it until you understand more about privacy problems and how to make your tree private if you want to, or make what I call a skinny tree, which wouldn't have all the children and all the extra people, but would just be for a slimmed down tree in order to use the tree for cousin bait. Because if you put your tree on a commercial site, they own it, not you. They own it. If that's the only place you have it on, that makes your tree very vulnerable. So I want you to think about that and remember that you should have the tree either on your website or have a totally different way, either by paper or scrapbooking or however you want to do it, keeping track of your family tree yourself. So just think about that. We can always talk about it some more. So down here at the very bottom, on any commercial site, you should find things like terms and conditions and privacy, okay? That's just a little trick to get you to look again at the sites. And when you look at Ancestry, left-hand corner is always the home page. You get back to the beginning when you go there. They have the various sites here. Yes, you can see there's a little envelope here. It says I have 8 messages. Actually, I've read all of those, but they're my DNA messages, so I'm not in a rush. I have millions of green leaves. I never go to them. It's a waste of time. And then when you look across here, you can search. You can search in any way. You can look at trees. Trees are a database that is highly flawed, but it can give you some good clues, particularly those trees where people have only put up information that they have found very good documentation for. Unfortunately, too many people get started before they actually learn very much about really that whole process of proving forward and backward 100% before you move on. And so a lot of trees are quite flawed, but it is a database. It's the one I look at only if I'm completely and utterly stuck and I'm trying to find any little clue that would help me. But searching, we have DNA, and we have help. They have a support center with information, which is very helpful. Extras are things they like you to do. You can have Ancestry on your Android or your iOS app on your phone, smartphone, which is very handy when you're out and about researching at a library, or if you're visiting a friend and other cousin or whatever, and you want to show them what you're doing. But we're going to go into search, and I see what to do to protect I'm going to look at a few questions here, and can I please remind you, put a big Q, Mel and Sue, anybody who puts a question up, put a Q first so we can see it right away. First of all, privacy. If you're going to protect your relatives' privacy, if they're alive, don't put them up. If they're alive, don't put them up. If you have grandparents who have deceased, you can start with your grandparents. In Canada, Ancestry.ca would be your default because we live in Canada. You still have access to more than Canada. I actually have the world account, so I can get all of their records. Ancestry.com is more or less the American one, but it's also not just the American one, it's actually the North American one. Because really, they've mixed up our Canadian records right in with their American ones sometimes. It's quite frustrating. And I'll talk about GEDCOM at the end, Sue, so please remind me if I don't answer your question. So let's go looking at searching. Can I just say before you even search, did you write down what you're going to search for? Have you written down who you're going to search for? Their full name? Do you know their birth date? Do you know the year they might have been born in? Is it a marriage record you're looking for? Do you know roughly when they got married? That should all be written down and clarified before you even get on the site and start searching. They kind of want you to search right away because you will find some low-hanging fruit pretty quickly, and that's very satisfying. And they want you to be satisfied. If you're happy, you'll keep it up. But you can, first of all, think about where you're searching and who. And why? Why are you looking for this? What information is this going to give you that will solve an issue or solve a question? What is it? Maybe what you're looking for is the marriage record for your grandparents. But you should be able to find that in most countries, North America and the UK. That shouldn't be hard to find. But you need to know their full names. You need to know roughly where they were living when they were married. How do you figure that out? Well, it might be from the birth of the first child. If you look at the birth of the first child, that will give you a guesstimate about roughly where they might have been living. It will certainly give you information about whether they were old enough to get married, whether they had to have a special license. It will give you the names of witnesses, which are wonderful. They're almost always family members. And it'll give you often the occupation of the groom at least, and sometimes it'll give the fathers of the bride and father of the groom and their occupation. So you sometimes find a lot of information on a marriage record. They are one of my favorite records actually because of that. So let's just look at a search. I want to look at searching first. When you're looking at search, a drop-down menu comes up. It says all collections, so that's just the grab bag. You do that and you'll get any collection. Or maybe you just want to look up censuses, maybe the Canadian census. Well, probably I would go to Library and Archives for Canadian censuses, but Ancestry has them as well. Birth, marriage, and death, otherwise known as BMD. That's another thing you'll find in genealogy. People use these little short acronyms and shorthands. BMD is common. You'll find BMD always talked about. What's the BMD? Have you got all the BMDs yet? Immigration and travel, public member trees. And notice that we've got a section for trees here, but they hit them again here in searching. Military records are often kept quite separate. They're a specialty one. And then I love card catalog. Card catalogs, do everybody remember the little card catalogs at your local library or university? And I'm sure anybody who's pulled one of those out and dropped one on the floor with all those cards, remembers putting them all back together again, right? Card catalogs allow you to look at quite a lot of information. For instance, this just gives you everything, 33,000 databases. Those are totally separate databases that they have. A database is simply a collection of similar information that's all together. Maybe it was all in a card catalog, all in an entire set of files in an office. It's your contact list in your smartphone is a database. Okay, it's just a database. It's just a collection. But if you're wanting to look at a variety of things, like perhaps I only want to look for Pennsylvania, and I only want to look for marriages. What have they got on Ancestry for Pennsylvania marriages? Well, gee, look at this. There's 107 record sets, some of which are very, very specific, like the Evangelical Free Church, Swedish American Church records, but that might be just what you're looking for. Pennsylvania German marriages. You remember they used to say that people in Pennsylvania, the Pennsylvania Dutch, well, they weren't Dutch, they were Deutsch, which is German, the Pennsylvania Deutsch, but the Pennsylvania German records and specific ones. So this just gives you a way to not look at 33,000, but only look at 100. And maybe you're only looking at birth, marriage, and deaths in the US. So we'll hit US down here. You can filter. I always filter. And these are all US. And I literally just want Pennsylvania. And yes, and then I only want Berks County because that's where my people were. Now I'm down to 3. So can you see this is a much more focused way to do a search? I hope that makes some sense to you. I prefer searching like this before I do a global all collections research. But I might have not done it this way. What I might have done was not do marriages, just do Pennsylvania records. And maybe I just want to do stories, and I want to do it in the 1700s. There's 45 in here. So if I'm looking for specific people, this may be a real quick way for me to go, oh, there's my people, the Pierces, those are my people. So this could be, again, a very helpful way to just pinpoint down your research. Once you've done this a number of times, I think you're going to find it a really quick and helpful way to get into your research where you're actually focused on specific research. You're not just looking for a needle in a haystack. You've actually taken out a small bucket of hay and you're finding the needle in that. Much easier to do. So I'm hoping that makes some sense to you in terms of searching. Can I just say that when you do look for a search, let me just get the register here, just one of them for you. This is a particular congregation. You can browse the collection, but you could put in a keyword. I'm just going to put in Kuhn because that is my main name. I don't do exact. I untick that. I want something similar. Every surname, I'm sure you all know by now that spelling was completely irrelevant until about 1860 or thereabouts. So you're going to find surnames spelled even by relatively well-educated people and lawyers and everybody. You'll find them sometimes they'll spell somebody's surname 3 different ways in the very same document. And then the person who this is for, like say a will, might sign it and he signs his name a 4th different way. So really spelling was quite irrelevant until we had a much higher percentage of literacy. So if I look for Kuhn, what am I going to find? None. So there are no Kuhns in here. So I'm not going to find any in this particular group in Lancaster. They weren't Lutheran, and I know that now because they were Catholic. I didn't find that out for a long time. So rather than look for a specific one, I might go into the picture. And it tells me what it is. If you are going to take anything, any images from this, because you find one of your people on it, you're going to want to take a picture of it, either a screenshot, or you're going to download it, save to your computer. This is not indexed, you can't, but what you can do is use a snipping tool. And I'm hoping that all of you have on your computer some version of a snipping tool. To me, it's an essential part of your genealogy research. So we'll get to that. That is something that's very important. I happen to use Snagit, S-N-A-G-I-T. But I also have what's the snipping tool from Microsoft Word. And I know that on any Mac, they also have a snipping tool. So snipping tools are often coming with your operating systems these days because they are, in fact, really quite essential. And if you were going to do that, I'd actually immediately snip this title because it's your clue about what is it? What is the source of the information? This is the source. And you found it on Ancestry. So it's both pieces. You don't just say, yeah, I found it on Ancestry. No, you found this in this register on Ancestry, okay? And let's just look inside and see, there's usually front matter. And it talks about things and how it explains it. And then we start to get into, this is just telling us how much is in. What I want is the actual, is this not going to give me any congregations? Well, we've got lots of information, but not, nope. So this actually is simply a history of, it doesn't give me what I want. So I don't need to look at this anymore. And this sometimes happens. You'll find this quite often. You'll get started on something. It looks like it's going to lead you somewhere. And when you go quickly through it, you scan and see it's not there. So you're going to search differently. When you're searching, I'll just put in all collections because most of you have done searches this way. Can I just suggest that you remember when you're searching, you'll need to have a list of different ways your surname might have been spelled, particularly those of you who've come from different countries. Your ancestors have come from Spain and Romania and Belarus and Poland. Oh my goodness. But even Ireland and Scotland, people don't hear the names this very well. So you're going to have that list. My father's name was Gillespie. I would have thought it was pretty obvious. It's Gillespie. I found 17 different spellings in the records when I've gone looking back into about my 1800. So it's kind of shocking, but it's just the way it is. And my great grandfather's Gillespie name was spelled G-L-A-S-B-Y. Gillespie. No, it's Gillespie. So just so you know, can you show us how the image looks? If you go just to snagit.com, Julie, they'll show you examples and you can actually look that up and see what it looks like. The image looks exactly like what you see. You can save it. It shows you, you can save it, you can change it, you can put an arrow on it. It's just a very practical thing. Any snipping tool saves what you see as you see it. It doesn't change it. So if we're going to search, I want to point out to you that surnames need to be variable. Have your paper, tick them off individually as you've searched to see if you get better luck with one. If you're not finding your person, remember that sometimes the database might have had the surname first and then the second and then the first name second. So you might actually put the surname in the first space and see what you get. That's not an uncommon way to search if you're finding it difficult to find your person. is to simply reverse the first and last name. I would strongly suggest you not fill in all the possible options. More information is not always better. It actually limits your search really a lot. The limitation should be more on things like place. If you know that they should be in Manitoba, or maybe they're supposed to be in Brandon, you thought they were in Brandon, then you're going to want to put place. But otherwise, if I'm just starting off searching for somebody and I haven't done a search for them yet, I'm probably going to put just their first and last name, the place they might have lived, a birth year if I can figure it out. And remember that it doesn't have to be completely accurate. And you are allowed to estimate their birth date based on when they got married, because boys had to be 21 really before they could marry. If they were apprenticed, they had to be 21. If they wanted to own property and be witnesses on wills, etc., there are age limitations on all of that. So mostly men married between 21 and 25 or 30. Women usually marry between about 17 and 25. So you can make a good estimate of when that means their birth date might have been. So feel free to estimate. You should never have a name in your tree without an estimated birth date. And I put it in as EST. So I would put EST 1850, and then I would put in square brackets, which means it's my information based on marriage record. And I hope that makes sense to you. When I look at somebody's tree online and they don't have any birth dates estimated, marriage dates estimated, people married within a year or two or so of the first child, and they died after the first child was born. So you have lots of ways of estimating people's BMDs. You can limit what you've done. You can limit. I usually limit by gender. I sometimes look at photos and maps because I do find that useful. I generally unclick family trees. I find that I only go to family trees if I am totally stuck. Stories are good. I particularly want historical records. So you could just take off everything and just look for historical records. On the other hand, sometimes there are publications that are very useful. So you decide what you're going to do. Always remember that the collection focus it shows is the collection focus you last searched. So if you were just searching in the States, you will still be searching in the States until you change it to Canada, okay? I've been surprised by why I can't find anything, and then I realized, oh, I forgot to change it. All right, I don't add very much in terms of family members unless there's a purpose for it. If you have an unusual named sibling or an unusual name for a mother or father, then it might be worth putting it in. But if you're just starting first, I put the least amount of information you can, and that might be just the father's name. Men are always listed everywhere. Any questions from just looking at this these search issues? Pop them in the chat box. You can see as well on the right-hand side, they go through their categories. When you search, you always have categories as well as just a list of all the possible things they found. You can also separate them out into categories. And I must admit, I do prefer to look up categories. So let me look for one of them. Charles. New York. Say. And let's see what we find. Oh, he's not in Canada. Oh, actually, he would be in Canada. No, I need him in the States, actually, because we're in New York. Sorry, people. So you'll find a number down the side here, and as you can see, that's too many. That is way too many to search. I'll search up to about 100 or so. I don't want to search 320,000, so I'm going to limit what I'm looking for. I'm only wanting, say, census lists. And I'm only wanting them in North America. Yes, and in the 1800s. And it doesn't take them too long. Well, we're down to 7,000. That was quite good, wasn't it? So I'm going to now say I want the coon to be absolutely correct. Still not getting it down. I want it down to a couple hundred. So you can play. Can I just show you how you play with your results and your question until you get what you're actually looking for? Edward appears to be a problem. I'm only getting Edwards, and really what I want is Charles. So I'm going to edit it again. See the edit up here, the big edit pencil? I'm going to get rid of Edward. I just want Charles. And let's search again. I'm down to 300. Well, we're getting better. Let's get into the 1880s census. And he'll be on probably a second or third page because as you can see, we're getting into Ohio here. On any result, you can browse by category. This one you can't because I've already specified what I'm looking for. And what I'm looking for is absolutely just New York, and I'm getting too many other things. So this teaches you to get more precise in what you're putting down to search. I will go back into my tree and I'll look for, whoops, I want my tree. Are you seeing my tree now or not? Somebody type yes or no. Okay, I'll get my information I want. Thank you. I'll get the information I want myself off my tree, and I'll share my tree another time. Marguerite married Charles, and I have him 1880. He should be with Louis. Okay. Just trying to figure out why because I did this before just to see what I was trying to do. And yeah. All right. I'm going to quit that part because I actually had already looked it up and realized that that I had already found it, but for some reason it's not showing it. No, I want Charles E. Coon. He's not showing up there. Clapsaddle is another one of my guys, but I don't need to look for that. Yes, but Deb, it is a typo, but if it's a common name, their algorithms are quite good at knowing that Charles is actually Charles. And if you did Edward with a W or a U, they'll figure that out. So spelling things is actually not much of a problem. And so I don't worry about my fingers being messy and doing things wrong. So not that, which is actually quite reassuring, don't you think? That you can spell wrong and still find something. However, so let's take that off from Ancestry. Ancestry is one of your most common ones. They do have a lot of databases. Their strength is in their US records and Canada. Although they often don't separate out Canada's records, which I find most interesting. And they have a lot of indexes, whereas I prefer to be able to see the actual document. Whenever possible, you want to see the original document because that's the one that can prove who's related to whom. Most indexes only give you 3 to 5 fields to put in, maybe a first name, last name, a date, and a place, but the actual record might also have occupation, how long they've lived there. Could have a lot of good information. All right, so that's Ancestry. I'm going to click it off. And something to remember is whatever you find, if you do find the exact document you want and you save it, please make sure you download the full page of where you found that information. Because for instance, on a census page, there will be lots of information. And let me just pull this back. There'll be a lot of information on the entire sheet, and on the one before and the one after, of course, but also the family you want, which may be towards the bottom of the page, and you look down and you go, oh, there they are, and you use your snipping tool and you snip that out and you say, oh goody gumdrops, and then you forget to name it correctly and where it came from. So you can't remember, was that 1860 or 1870, that census. Anyway, what you always need to do is save the whole page first and name it correctly with the family you're looking for. Because you may find, as I did, that up towards the top of the page is the family of the woman he married. My great-grandfather, Dr. Louis de Barthcoon, was in Port Townsend as a doctor for about 5 or 6 years or 7 years, married Amelia Pettygrove, and that Pettygrove family was towards the top of the family. I just slid right past that. I didn't know them from a hole in the ground. And yes, there's my Dr. Louis de Barthcoon. He's right there. Yeah, well, he was only about 3 or 4 houses away from the girl he ended up marrying. So do save the whole thing. It really helps a lot. So let me do, if you don't have questions on Ancestry, let's move on to Find My Past. Is this something some of you are using? I hope so. Feel free to chat in the chat log there as to what you're doing, whether you have or haven't. And yes, Rami, if you put just the place where you think they lived, it should do that. And sometimes it doesn't. Because remember, the name of something in one country may be, I don't know, it may be a similar name in another country. That's true also of cities and counties and provinces, not provinces, but counties and cities. Sometimes those names are all over the place, particularly in the States. So try to be specific first and then see if that helps you. You can try it both ways and see what you find. So let's go to Find My Past. findmypast.co.uk. There's also findmypast.com. They've been trying to make big inroads into the US market, and so you can also see what it looks like for findmypast.com. Let's just go there first. And are you all seeing? Yes, Ron, the Jewish genealogy is so wonderful. They're so helpful. Can I just say first off, when you go on findmypast.uk, you get a little pop-up on privacy. And so we're going, before you do anything else. So performance cookies. They're not showing, why aren't they showing me? Seems to be. Are you able to see my Find My Past? You are, I hope. For some reason, this is not letting me chat to them. I don't know why. I will log in. And here we are, and I need to move that out of the way. When you're on Find My Past, again, notice it's different from Ancestry. It looks quite different. Down at the very bottom, you will find things like terms and conditions and privacy and cookies and policy. So please get used to the notion that it's your responsibility to look up terms and conditions. It's your responsibility to know about privacy. No hand holding allowed. This is actually about you. And you'll also notice they have other sites. I talked about findmypast.com. If you have a lot of people who went to Australia and you want to just look at just Australian records, have a look at findmypast.com.au and see what you think. I tend to have all my guys in England and Wales. That's a big, huge group for me, and so therefore that's where I tend to go. What else was I going to suggest here? Oh, you can take a free trial. All the sites, commercial sites, MyHeritage, FindMyPast, and Ancestry, they all have free trials. In most cases, you have to put in your credit card. They tell you how many days you're doing. It's 14 days usually. It's quite common. And it's your responsibility to go in a couple days before there and email them or mark it as not renew. And I normally email them directly to support at whatever the place it is, support at, and say, please cancel my trial subscription. Okay? And that's true for a yearly subscription or a monthly subscription, whatever you've done. It's your responsibility to cancel it, to stop it from automatically renewing. I think that's a really crappy thing for them to do. I think they should come back to you and ask you, do you want this? Is this what you want to do? No, they assume, yep, you're going to do it. Oh, you changed your mind. So it's easier to do that ahead of time than find yourself suddenly owing Ancestry $400, $380 or thereabouts. So make sure you have a look at all of this. And your help button is not down at the bottom. It's usually up at the top here, help and more. Frequently asked questions, look through there, look through here and find out how this works. Look through on the help hub. They have lots of good help there. So don't just dive right in and look. Just start thinking. When I'm on Find My Past, I'm usually looking for a specific place for some of my people. And the simplest way to search is on here, I search all records just because that's what I do. But you have choices. You could only look in just one thing or another. I'm going to do all records. But once I'm here, I immediately start putting in a place. It's the first thing I do. I want England. I want Cheshire. I've been doing a lot in here lately. That's why I'm doing Cheshire. And then I'm going to start looking for, I want to do Weaverham. That's actually my, there we go, Weaverham. In some sites, some of these sites you go on, archives and libraries and things, they may flip it around where it would say England, Cheshire, Weaverham. And so that's just the way it goes. You'll get used to that. You'll learn pretty quickly which way it'll do it. I put the search radius for within 5 miles of Weaverham. And I'm going to look for who all is there, who was there in 1790. I'm hoping some of you have people. Oh, Julie, you're from Cheshire. Wonderful. Cheshire has lovely records. Can I just say that? Find My Past has a ton of wonderful parish registers and lots of records for them. So they're my faves. They tell you immediately how many results you have. That's a lot. So let's browse a category and get into birth, marriage, and death parish records. And I want just parish baptisms in 1790. How many results? I've still got 10,000. Huh. Let's take this down to just Weaverham then and see what that does. 500 results for parish baptisms in Weaverham. Weaverham is a small town. I'm here to tell you it's quite small. So I'm going to just say only in 1790. So can you see you keep cutting these down to get it down to a point that you can actually search well. And that gives me only 49. The results are always shown right away. So you know exactly how many you found as soon as you make any changes in here. So I'm going to look at the results. And here they're done alphabetically. They're done by always year of birth. It's only 1 year. And what I want you to notice is that they tell you where it's coming from. This is the Cheshire Diocese of Chester Parish Baptisms, 1538 to 1911. It's a lovely batch of records, absolutely marvelous. And what you can see here is both a document, which is a transcript, and an image. And I'm going to suggest to you that whenever you have a choice of looking at either a document, a transcript, or an image, first look at the transcript to get the detail that will help you find it in the register. I'm in 1790. I'm in parish registers. These are not civil verse. These are not civil records. So as a result, it's handwritten and it could be messy. So what I'm going to do is look first at, let's see if we can find here anything useful. How about Hankey? That looks like a good one. Hankey, and what do we see? We see Hankey, Edward Hankey, who's born August the 1st. So I would write down August the 1st. That's why you never do any computer work until you have a pencil and paper at hand. And also I'm going to put down his father's name was William and his mother's name was Mary. That is not at all uncommon. Those are very, very common names. So now I'm going to go back and I'm going to look at the image, the actual image. Be prepared for a mess. Are you ready? Oh, this is nice. This is actually very nice handwriting. August. My goodness, you can find this almost right away. You can make this larger or smaller. We can find September, October, September, August. It's down at the bottom here. August the 1st. He's the last guy on this page. Edward, son of William and Mary Hankey of Cuddington, born June 28th. Well, aren't you lucky? You get a birth, this guy, this parish priest put in the birth date as well as the baptism date. So you now have both a birth date and a baptism date from this thing. What I would do with this is I would first of all snip this whole thing, and then I would take my snipping tool. I would expand this nice and big so it's clear, and I would snip all this. So I've got the date here, all of that. Clear? So I'm hoping you find that this is a way to help you find information and verify. If you've been following down all the way here, you know who Edward is, and you heard on a record that his father was William. It's a pretty common name, but how many of them were born August the 1st? Or baptized August 1st? In this case, you were born June 28th, but you need the baptism date because baptism dates were more important than birth dates. So you guys are just listening and looking, are you? Nobody's asking any questions? I'm shocked, absolutely shocked. One of the things I wanted to point out to you here is you'll sometimes find names repeated. So I'm just going to whip through this a little more quickly. So here I'm finding two Lewises in that were baptized. One's a John and one's a Thomas. The possibility is that they are sons of brothers in the parish, or cousins, or one baby was born in January and the other one was born in December. Otherwise known as Irish twins. But because it's, boy, sometimes women really, they got pregnant pretty quickly after a baby. How do you choose to name the files when you stick them? Oh, naming is a whole nother ball game, dear, and I may show you that towards the end. Actually, I would probably do it this way. Hold on 1 second, I'm just typing it. So I would name it something like this because I'm keeping people in a line by their surname. I put the date. I actually put more information. Probably put the August 1st, or I could put the June 28th, which is a birth date in. And I put in the exact place. And then I put that in that I got it from Find My Past and that it was an image. It wasn't a transcription. So hopefully that makes sense to you, but there are many ways to name things. This is only one possibility. The reason to name something and save it is that you can find it in 1 minute flat. So whatever system you're using, you need to have a system to save it. So I will show you what I've done with my own so you can see some of the pros and cons of different ways of doing things, okay? That's a good question though, a very good question. And I took 5 years to rename all my files, all right? 5 years. The reason, Lisa, that I snip the file, I snag it, the full image. You can download them, but not all sites will allow you to download, but they will usually allow you to snip. They can't stop you from snipping. So sometimes you'll snip and sometimes you'll download. Even when you download, when you open up that document you've downloaded, you may well copy it and make a snip of just what you want. And yes, I'll talk about software, thanks. It saves it, usually it saves it as a JPEG. Okay. So I hope you noticed one thing, which is that you get a lot of things to look at. Don't just start searching through there, hunting for your needle in a haystack. Take some control of the search and filter it. Filter it down to what you're looking for. Maybe you want to look at wills and probates, not parish baptisms. Wills and probates. Here's a batch of 1800 Cheshire wills and probates. Those will be very, very useful. Got a lot of Bancrofts. Wonder if they're all one family. So you've got a lot to look at here. And I think the best thing to do is to thin down your search to something that's really manageable so that when you're looking in the most likely place for the most likely person. When you get much more skilled at researching, what you're going to find yourself doing is maybe being a bit more specific in your searching, but I prefer you'd start off by trying to be first global and search, thin it down based on what you're specifically looking for. Maybe it's just deaths and burials. Maybe it's just parish baptisms. Maybe it's just censuses. Maybe it's just military. Maybe that's all you're looking for because that's what you're searching for. Most of us just do what we call global searching. That's not research. That's just trying to find, opening up a haystack and saying, I wonder what's in there. Well, it's a lot. So the more you can be specific, the more successful you'll be. And you know what? You're going to feel a lot of satisfaction out of fine-tuning your search and going, oh, there it is, which is so exciting, rather than go page after page after page after page of stuff that has nothing to do with your guides at all. Okay? So let me move back from that one. And again, just like Ancestry does, they have trials. They have their strength actually is in England and Wales and Northern Ireland, and their parish registers are a real strength, just a huge strength. I love them for that. They have other things as well, though. When you're on Find My Past, if you have a subscription, and you can do a subscription just for a couple of months, those are a choice. You have to dig around for it. Maybe I should show you where you can find that, because it is a bit of a problem to find There we go. And share. Are you seeing that again? Are you seeing my Find My Past again? Good, thank you. If you go down to the bottom, remember, take a subscription. Now, sometimes I can't find what I'm looking for. Oh, because I'm signed in, it won't show. Okay, when you go on, I'm sorry about that. When you go on to take a subscription, it should show you options of 3 months or a year. They used to show monthly, and I'm not sure why I'm not seeing monthly anymore. I had thought they were still doing that. But try a free trial first, a free trial, and or take a subscription for 3 months and see how that goes. I think that's about 30 pounds or something like that, 30 pounds, which is not terrible. Maybe if you talk to your cousins and an aunt and a best friend, you might be able to share the dollars for it, or have somebody buy it for you for your Christmas present. Almost all of the commercial sites don't make it easy to find out the different ways you can purchase a subscription. It's very frustrating. I have to tell you that. It's frustrating for all of us. So let me stop sharing there. Any more questions that have come up here? Okay. So Find My Past, if you're looking for England and Wales, marvelous. One of the best. I will say that I frequently will open up several different sites all at once to look something up, because maybe Ancestry has a clearer scan. Maybe Find My Past has much better transcriptions. Maybe Family Search has really good indexes or really good images as well. So in many cases, they all have done the same databases. And if that's true, if you're having trouble reading it on one site, go to the other site and check the other sites. And remember, you can get Ancestry, the library edition. It's virtually as good as what you see on that you saw on my version of Ancestry. The only real difference is you can't message anybody who has a tree, and you can't message anybody who has DNA. So that just means that internal messaging system doesn't work when you're on the library edition. Otherwise, really, you get a good deal. It's a good deal for the library to offer that to everybody, and to be able to do it at home as well. Ancestry has allowed that really pretty much since the beginning of the pandemic. So I think we're pretty happy about that. We can complain about Ancestry, but I mean, it's a commercial site. What can we say? Their job is to make money for their investors. All right, no questions floating around. And looking at the time, we're doing pretty well. Let's go to My Heritage. I can tell you the least about this one because it's, let me just share my screen. I want to discover, yes, I want that one. Share. So you're looking here at My Heritage, and I no longer have a subscription with them, not necessarily because I don't think it's useful, but I can't afford to have subscriptions at every place. I have one for Ancestry and Find My Past, and I also have one for the New England Historical and Genealogical Society, because I have a ton of extremely early New England ancestors, so they're very helpful. So My Heritage, I tried for a couple of years and thought, you know, I might go back and do a membership there at a later time, but I won't. I still have my tree on there, and so I can still log in. My Heritage strengths is in Europe. They're really going gung-ho. They just finished buying the Genealogy, which is the French, the huge French. Think of it as Ancestry for French, but it isn't Ancestry. They have a wonderful batch of records for the French. They have a number in Germany. a number in other parts of the country, Israel as well. They themselves are based in Israel, and they are they're as transparent as they can be about what they're doing and how they're doing it. I have a lot of respect for them. The problem is the people I'm looking for in Germany came to the States in about 1730 or so. They haven't got enough records for me yet. I think maybe in 5 years or so I'll try again. You have Ancestry, you have a DNA. We're not going to, Sue, we're not going to get into DNA, I'm afraid. That's actually much more outside the scope of what this talk can do. And Ancestry has tons of people doing DNA that only want to know the ethnicity, and ethnicity is only accurate at the continental level, not at the country level, but the continental level. So personally, I would not do DNA until you've already been skilled in genealogy, because DNA has to go hand in hand with genealogy research before it's actually useful. Now here, when you get to MyHeritage, they have a lot of different kinds of records. I would say research, collection catalog. Remember we talk about collection catalog. I love collection catalogs. I'm sorry it's not clear. They fog it out because I'm not a member. But what I'm hoping is you can see that on the left-hand side here, I don't think I can make it any bigger either. No, I can't make it bigger. They have census lists, 166. They have birth, marriage, and death, over 1,100 databases. They have military records, over 680. They have books and publications, 100 odd separate databases. You can refine them by different countries. Their biggest one is USA and Europe. Europe is about 1,100 odd. USA is about 3,200. And they're expanding constantly in different areas. They haven't updated their Europe one there, because even just the French ones they put in has a lot of databases, and they're not showing that yet. And you can refine by years as well. You can refine by years such as 1490 to 1599, 1900 to 1999. So they give you ways to, just as Ancestry does, to refine your search very quickly, so that you can look for just specific things like government, land, and court and wills. Well, that would be helpful. Or if you're looking for school and university books, I mean, that could be very helpful as well. So for people who are looking for their ancestors in the Scandinavian countries, Germany, parts of Germany, particularly the northern counties, particularly the northwestern countries, and also down towards the sort of Württemberg and oh, what's the other one? I want to say Bayern, but that's not right. Anyway, the Württemberg area down the bottom, south and southwest. Those areas are beginning to fill in with lots of records. There are a lot of records. There's been people in Germany for a long time. And not only do they have the record books, but they also have house books. People used to have house books. The book would stay in the house, and it listed everybody who lived there and when. So when new people moved in and bought the house, they put their name down in the house book. So there's ways of that. I think that's true in some of the Scandinavian countries as well. So MyHeritage is going to be a very useful place for many of us in the future. I'm not sure, for some of us it's very useful. For some of you, you may dive straight in and say, yes, this is my place. This is what I need to look for. They also put on free webinars through Legacy Family Tree Webinars, and their webinars are always free. So that's also very useful. All right, so the next thing, how's our time? 7:47, we're doing okay. The last one I want to talk about is family search. So let me share my screen again. And I'm going to go to the one I think you should all be starting with, which is Find My Past. No, not Find My Past. Come on, I did it wrong. Sorry. Hold on. We will just stop that. I've already been to Find My Past. What I want is Family Search. FamilySearch.org. And when you get here, oops. When you get here, you have to sign in. The databases they have, this is a free site. They've made contracts with the different countries, towns, organizations to scan with professional scanners the records they have. And one of the requirements from many of those places are, please, only to people who are actually looking for ancestors. I don't want it to be considered public. So one way to make sure that they're limiting who sees it is to make sure you have a free account. So it's just a free account. I, of course, am here. Haven't been 37 for many years, but here we go. Now, Family Search is run by the Mormon Church, the Latter-day Saints, and sometimes you'll see it talked about as the LDS Church or the Mormon Church. And they have a huge, huge, huge stone vault where they keep all the records, all the original records. Even though they've digitized all those records now, in fact, the original records are still there. So if they have to do them over again, they would be able to. The reason I want you to get used to getting on Family Search is because they have marvelous, marvelous information. Most people think of Family Search and say, oh, that tree, it's a waste of time. There's too much garbage on it. Everybody changes things. Well, the tree is only one small part of Family Search. The biggest part of Family Search is their wiki. When you come on, go to along the top here, you'll see Family Tree, Search, Memories, Indexing, and Activities. Mostly what you're always going to be looking for is Search. But let's go back down to the bottom. Remember, I keep telling you terms of service, Family Search terms of use, privacy notice. It's always at the bottom of every page, okay? Any site you're on, it's always there and you can look at it. You can fix your cookie preferences. There's a lot of information, so please do that. Let's go to search. Records, images, genealogies are part of the family tree. The overall catalog, which is well worth looking. Books, I look up specific books sometimes, or general books on a particular surname, because I have very early American ancestors, and therefore they often wrote up books about their ancestors in the 1800s. But the research wiki, where's my research wiki? Is it working? It's slow tonight. It is really slow tonight. It normally whips right in. Okay, here we are. The wiki is has a lot of information about the research you can do, how you can do it, where you can do it. Note that over on the right-hand side is help. You get a gold star if you use help. Why? Because we need help sometimes. We need help in understanding. We need help in figuring something out. Don't forget to go to help. You can also send a message to them if something's not going right and you think there's something wrong, or it's really a bad picture, an image, and you don't know what to do about that. You can message them. Jumpstart your research, guided research. Take advantage of all this help before you even start. For any of you who are looking for a specific place, let's see. Let's look at Poland, shall we? Poland. By the way, do you see these groupings here? Those of you that want to know about DNA, this is how accurate DNA is, okay? This is how accurate it is at the continental level, not at the country level. Oh, it's getting a little better in some areas, in some places, but mostly not. So let's look at Poland. And when you come to Poland, now you're still on the wiki. If you look up at the top here, it says FamilySearch.org, wiki, EN for English, Poland genealogy. And when you get there, it will give you information about the country, where the borders. The borders are very important because they changed a lot, right? They changed a lot. in Europe. Borders changed with wars. Poor Poland, it got squished. The Russians came this way, the Germans came that way. They lost some at the bottom. It's just, yeah, there was a lot of changes in the borders. It tells you about getting started. Take time to read it. How to use the videos. 18 5-minute little videos. You've got 5, you can do 5 minutes. There's some how-to guides, how to locate the town of origin, how to begin, research strategies, finding Jewish ancestors in Poland, etc. So there's lots of information there. Poland online genealogy records. Most of you would just dive straight to there. I'm suggesting you take time through here first. Polish letter writing. Did you know that they had, you had letter writing guides in here? And word lists, so that even though you can't speak the words, because remember they have Russian and German as well as Polish, because the borders moved in and out. So those people, unless you were down in that little narrow center section, you had Russians, you had Germans, you had to use those languages. So you need to know those words. So here's word list. What do you need? Birth, marriage, death, baptism, father, mother, brother, sister, son, daughter. There's certain words you'll need to know. It also shows you on the right-hand side here, topics on beginning search, record types, so that you've already got a start on what kinds of record types they have. So before you even get started researching, why not go walking your way through all of this before you start? They also have archives and libraries and direct lines to that. And there's a person who's the moderator for Poland. And so you could actually send an email, a message to that person through Family Search asking for more help. And here's some maps. Here's some maps at different times. So I'm hoping you can see that really this is a good place to start. I do this whenever I have to start in anywhere new. I'll even do it in England. But I have another place to use for England. How are we doing here? Okay, so you don't see my screen anymore, right? I have to make sure you can't see it anymore. Great. And yes, absolutely, Ron. The headstones, just so you're aware, headstones are a flawed database as well. Up to 10 to 15% of all headstones have errors. Some of them are small errors, some of them are major errors. They didn't get fixed, it's too expensive. So billion graves is one, find a grave is another. They're both very useful. Those are what I call more databases to look at to find information, and they're all clues, but remember, the best clue you can find is a document or an item that was made at the time of an event, right at the time, so, or close enough. So you've got a baptism. The parents had to register the birth after that within a certain period of time. Or maybe the child was born and it was normal for baptism to be 5 days after, or 10 days after, or within 6 weeks. Although for a time in England, you had to pay for it. And if you're really poor, you might wait and do all the kids at once. So the event and the document need to be very close together to be very valid. So for instance, if you've got a military record of somebody who signed on to join the Canadian force, expeditionary force for World War I, and he's put down his name and his year of birth and all of that, and says he's 19, and then you find his birth record and it says that really he was only 16 and a half when he signed up. So a military record is not, yes, you're absolutely right, both ways, Ron. You change birth years to make yourself too old or too young. But the birth record is your best record for a birth. A marriage record is an indication of how old you are, but it isn't proof. A military record, again, is not proof unless the birth certificate was shown at the time of the registration. So all of these things are wonderful. A census is only good for telling you that's where they lived at that particular day and time. It isn't, you can't go by how old they say they are. So there are lots of little tricks to remember about what is a valid proof of important dates and events in a person's lifestyle. And one of the things to do is to help yourself in making an actual timeline of a person's life. What would have happened during a person's life? Well, you know, their parents got married, their parents had babies. Here's your great-great-grandfather. Great-great-grandpa's there. And then maybe you've also got a record of his younger sister and his younger brother and his younger brother and his younger brother and his younger sister and younger sister. Very not uncommon to have from 6 to 12 kids because no birth control. It was challenging times. First baby came whenever, after that it took 9 months. So with a timeline, and then you've got, he went to school, he went to military work, he apprenticed somewhere. You've got reasons of what he was doing. Somewhere you had a record of him doing something at a specific time. So you work that into a timeline, and that will also help you because it should give a date, a place, and what he was doing. And those are really big clues for making sure you've got the correct person. It's very common to have the same names in the same towns over and over again.